Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. This video is about a week after the last one, and it contains mostly locomotives. I've gone a long way with my Helljan Class 47. It now has sound and it has cab lights, and I noticed a few problems with the Hornby decoder again, but I'll mention those as we go through. I also had a look at my Class 08, if you remember it, this, which I bought for 50 quid off of eBay with a jerky mechanism. I stripped it down, which for a Bachmann 08 is not that easy. It's easy when you know how, but it's a bit difficult to know where to start. But I stripped it down and discovered that the intermediate gears had bent teeth and twisted teeth, and that's why it was bouncing along. So I got onto Bachmann, got some new gears, fitted them, and it runs like a dream now. So we'll have a look at that. I'll show you the thing in pieces, show you which gears I mean, and then we'll have a quick look at it running on the test track. It's got no decoder in it yet. I also bought another loco on eBay. I just couldn't resist it. It's a blue Class 20 Bachmann again. For 55 quid you can't go wrong, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just unboxed with no DCC decoder. I don't know if it's DCC ready. It doesn't actually bother me one way or the other. I know that none of the Class 20s have lights, and I do want to try and fit those. And there will also be some running, as I say, of the various parts of the layout. So I'll not waffle on any longer because I think this video is going to be quite long. So I'll see you again at the end. Okay, well here we are over at the technology bench. Again, because my workbench is such a mess and this is a nice clear area, I decided to work here. And here is the 47 before it was finally put back together. Points to note: big speaker. This is the speaker, the same type as Susanna Joachim used over at Ringwood South. I think I took a little bit more off of it here than she did. Probably I've taken too much because she got it in her case, in her body I mean. But I have just fixed it with some tape along here, which does seem to work. And as you could hear, it's loud. It is very loud, even with the body on. Okay, so that's the speaker. It goes in this end, which is the number 2 end. Number 1 end has the fans. At the number 1 end we have a second decoder plus the TTS decoder at the number 2 end. I had intended to use the TTS decoder to drive the motor on this unit, and when I first tried it I discovered that it was a little bit jerky. Well, at some speeds quite jerky, but nowhere near as bad as 37431, my intercity loco with the dud motor had been. So I thought I can probably adjust some of Hornby's PID values and get it to run a bit better. While I was just trying it out, I happened to put my hand in front of it to stop it before I could get my fingers onto the command station, onto the cab controller. I did that, the motor slowed down and then stopped. And a second or so later it started again and then stopped again. And what I decided was that, and it was a fear that I'd had when I looked at Helljan motors and Hornby TTS decoders, the decoder's motor drive is not up to driving the Helljan motor. Helljan's motors are power hungry beasts. They're incredibly powerful, and they take a lot of current. When they're stalled they can take an amp, but even this motor not stalled and running at quite low speed took enough to trip out the motor drive on the Hornby TTS decoder. Now it's not a slur on Hornby. Their specification suggests that it could be a problem with their 0.8 amp maximum decoder current, including lighting, or function outputs shall we say, which are generally lighting. So I decided to put in one of my standard 8-pin direct decoders. I've nearly run out of those now. I should be on Lay's DCC decoders after these. But I decided to put in one of my standard decoders and tried the same test again, and it doesn't trip the motor control out. So it's definitely down to Hornby's rather low power TTS decoder motor output. Again, no slur on Hornby. It's part of the way they've achieved the lower cost for the sound decoder, and I can't fault them for that. I can fault them for their awful drive mechanism, their proportional integral differential, which they then cop out of by saying on their instructions that explanation of this system is beyond the scope of this document, which is rubbish, because we, the people who are going to use it, really need to know how it works. But that's another story. Anyway, so I have yet again got two decoders in here. The Hornby sound decoder gets its power from the red and the black that go directly back to it, and they're soldered on here, which are two of the wires that come straight up, or two of the connections that the wires that come straight up from the pickups go to. And I've also used the green and the blue wires off the Hornby TTS decoder to operate the new cab lights that I fitted into the cabs of the 47. Other than that, this decoder drives standard lighting, and it also drives the motor. I did play around for a little while with trying to get the Helljan rear lights to work better, and I played around with LEDs, but I couldn't get them to work better, because actually it's not the bulbs that Helljan use that are the big problem. The big problem is the fibre optics and the positioning of the bulbs. So I have left the original bulbs in. The headlights, well, should I say the marker lights, are fine as far as I'm concerned. The high intensity headlight is too yellow, but I'll live with that. And maybe I will have some dim red lights on the back, or maybe I won't. But if I've got none, it won't be any worse than 37431, which has no rear lights at all. So that's the story of how my Helljan 47 is inside. What I'll do now is talk to you about another project that is on the go, which I'm waiting for some spare parts for. So back in a mo. Okay, here I am back again with the other project that I've been working on this week, and this is my 50 quid Bachmann Class 08, which you may remember from an earlier video when I told you I'd bought it, quite a few videos ago now, that I bought it from Rails of Sheffield. They wanted, I think they wanted 60 odd quid for it, and they had it up as near offer, and they said that how it was a bit jerky when moving forward, and I thought, well, I'll take a chance. So I offered them 50 quid and they accepted it. So I have finally got around to stripping it down. It's a lot of parts, much harder to get apart than you might think. Lots of bits. There's a whole pile of bits in there. The motor is sat on this base piece. Let's take that out. There's a couple more pieces in there which are the brake gear, and the motor's still soldered onto its housing. But the cause of the problem is here. Let's get the wheel out of there. Oh, that was nicely holding it up. Let's use that to hold it up. Oh, maybe the wheel set was helping. Okay then. Right. So the cause of the problem is this piece. Here we have the two intermediate gears. The worm drives this one, and that in turn drives a pinion on the lower one. So the worm drives this one, and that in turn drives a pinion on the lower one, which in turn drives a pinion on the another gear pinion on there. Not quite sure how it drives that. Oh yes, it drives it directly through the top there, and that is how the power is transferred from the motor down to the wheels. What I've found is that when this turns, it's now gone very stiff, and it goes stiff at that point, and then it frees up again. Going in the other direction, it's even worse. So the cause of the problem happens to be right down in there. I'm not showing you this very well, I don't think, but that pinion, that little tiny gear down there meshing with this gear, is where the problem is. I think it has probably got jammed up at some time at speed, and has damaged the gears. So a phone call to Bachmann, and I have another pair of gears on the way. So that project will be completed once I get those parts and can do something about it. This loco is not going to be sound fitted. There are several reasons. Getting the sound out of a Bachmann 08 is apparently quite difficult, and on top of that, let's move the hole there. On top of that, this one is not DCC ready. This is just the oh dear, I keep caught on those wheels. This is just a PCB which allows you to have the various components connecting motor. So what I will do is I will put a wired decoder in here and simply wire the motor and just have it a non-sound class 08. Not a big problem. There will be locos on the layout that don't get sound. I had a tally up of my class 37s, and it seems that I've now got about a dozen of them. Well, I'd only planned on putting sound in 4 of them up until now. 3 of them I've done. One of them needs a speaker transplant still. It doesn't sound good enough. So there's a bit more work to go yet on 37s. So a class 08 without sound won't be too much of a problem. Anyway, that's something else that I've been working on since the last video. And there's the 08 back together, sitting by the fueling point on North Grove. It does run, but it has no decoder in it yet, so I need to think about what I'm going to do there. But what I'd like to do is add some lighting to it. But I'll just put it on the programming test track and we'll give it a run. 50 quid back when I ate. No ticks. And a good slow runner. This is just on DC. Finally, for this video, I picked this up on eBay. Only arrived today. A Bachmann class 20. Not sure one way or the other whether it's DCC ready. I think it might be, but I'm not at all sure. But it is a fairly modern Bachmann product. It's got the small tension locks with NEM pockets, and I happened to see it on eBay, and it had about 8 hours to go, and it was sitting at 46 quid with 5 bids. So I did what I usually do, have a look at who's bidding, and it seemed that the people that were bidding were just the typical eBay my bid, your bid, my bid, your bid, where they try and outdo one another until the price gets to the point where they don't want to go any further. The previous bid was 45, and this one was, and it was on 46. No, sorry, it was the previous bid was 44. It was on 45. So I put a bid in for 46 just to see how high it might have gone, and I was the highest bidder. So I thought, okay, let's see what we can do. So I waited right until the end of the auction. I worked out that I was prepared to pay 60 quid for it. It was unboxed, so no detailing parts, no instructions of any kind. Just an unboxed, weathered, well, not very weathered, I have to say. I wouldn't call it weathered, but it was suggested that it was weathered. It's got a bit of muck around there, but anyway, I worked out that I was prepared to pay 60 quid for it. So the postage was £3.50, so I put it, sorry, £4.50. So I set myself up to bid £56 right at the end of the auction, and I won it for 55 plus the £4.50 postage, which made it £59.50. So a Bachmann 08, a Bachmann class 20 for under 60 quid was a pretty good deal, I thought. I've tried it. It's not DCC fitted, so I've tried it on DC. It runs reasonably well. I can't really fault it. I will be stripping it down to have a look inside it and fit a decoder, of course, but I can't really fault it at all. It's one with the head code boxes as opposed to the discs. I didn't want a disc version. I decided that the head code boxes were much better from my requirements than the disc head codes, and it makes it a little bit more up to date from my railway. What I intend to do is to pair it with the other class 08 that I've got, which is a Rail Freight large logo red stripe, which is 2136, I think. This is 2129, which I think has been renumbered because I can't find a Bachmann 129 in Ramsey's. 128, but not 129. So I think it's been renumbered. Anyway, yet another project which will get on the workbench eventually. So that's it for this video. I should say thanks for watching, and I'll be back again, probably with some more locos, unless I start to actually in earnest think about breaking down the whole of Inglethwaite, ready to put with a new shelf in place and get the new baseboards built. But that's a big task, and I'd rather get a few locos sorted out first, so I've got plenty to run on it. So that's the plan. I'll see you again soon. Bye. Okay folks, so that's all for now. I expect this video has ended up quite long. The next video, which was going to be 1 to 2 weeks away, is going to be the first bit of experimentation, not really, concept proving or otherwise we'll call it, of how I'm going to mount points and point motors on the new Inglethwaite layout, which, if you remember, if you watched my last videos, is going to have baseboards made of styrofoam, and you can't put screws into that, you can't screw point motors underneath it, so they're going to have to be fitted in a sideways thinking, innovative way, and that's what we'll be looking at next time. So until then, bye. And finally in this video, a sound check as we start up and pull away with sound on the Helljan 47.